Lumikas kaya ang kalunos-lunos na babae mula sa insidente? Ang mga susunod pong pangyayari, ating aalamin maya-maya. Magandang gabi. Ako po si Ricky Matay.
Ako si Nina Richie Alago Flores. Ito ang mata ng Agila International. Para naman sa mga headlines ngayong araw ng Huwebes.
Asian Development Bank umaasang lalago ang ekonomiya ng Pilipinas ng 6%.
Department of Foreign Affairs kinumpirma ang pagkamatay ng ikalawang Pinoy sa Myanmar quake.
Pangulong Donald Trump nag-issue ng 90-day pause sa tariff policy.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky sinabi na nasa 155 Chinese soldiers ang makikipagdigma para sa Russia.
At higit sa 800 bombero nagtulungan para apulahin ang forest fire sa Shanxi, China. Inaasahan po ng Asian Development Bank o ADB na lalago ng 6% ang ekonomiya ng Pilipinas sa taong 2025.
Ito ay sa gitna ng malakas na domestic demand at patuloy na investments ng Pilipinas sa social services. Batay sa forecast ng ADB, ang GDP growth outlook para sa 2025 ay mas mataas sa 5.6% na paglago na naitala noong 2024. Pero ang estimate na ito ng ADB ay nalathala sa Asian Development Outlook Report nito para sa Abril na isinapinal bago nagpataw si US President Donald Trump ng 17% na reciprocal tariff sa Pilipinas. Gayunman, sinabi ni ADB Country Director for the Philippines, Pavita Aramachandran, na ang growth outlook para sa 2026 ay kanilang bahagyang ibinaba sa 6.1% mula 6.2%. Inaasahan din na susuportahan ng government spending ang paglago ng ekonomiya ng bansa dahil sa inaasahan na tataas na estimated 9.7% ang public expenditure ngayong taon.
Pupunta naman po tutungo sa Estados Unidos si Special Assistant to the President for Investment and Economic Affairs, Secretary Frederick Go, para makipagpulong sa mga U.S. trade representatives bilang tugon sa ipinataw na 17% reciprocal tariffs sa Pilipinas ni Pangulong Donald Trump. Ayon kay Go, makikipagnegosasyon sila sa Amerika para pag-usapan ang umiiral na trade tariffs. Anya, maaaring matalakay sa kanyang pagbisita sa US ang isang free trade agreement sa pagitan ng Washington at ng Manila. Binigyan din ni Go na kailangan ding makipag-usap ang Pilipinas sa mga exporters nito para matalakay ang mga posibleng measures na kanilang magagawa para matulungan sila ng gobyerno sa kanilang kasalukuyang lagay. Kahapon po, naging epektibo na kasi ang ipinataw na 17% reciprocal tariff sa mga Philippine exports na papasok sa Estados Unidos. Giit ni Trump, may diskwento pa ito kumpara sa ipinapataw na 34% na taripa ng Manila sa mga American exports na papasok sa Pilipinas.
Kinumpirma ng Department of Foreign Affairs o DFA ang pagkamatay ng ikalawang Pilipinong nadamay sa magnitude 7.7 na lindol sa Myanmar. Sinabi ng DFA na ipinarating ng Philippine Embassy sa Yangon ang positive identification ng labi o remains ng pangalawang Pilipino na nasawi sa malakas na lindol. Nitong Miyerkules, kinumpirma naman ng DFA ang pagkasawi sa lindol ng isa pang Pinoy na kinilalang si Francis Aragon. Kabilang ang 2 sa 4 na Pilipinong nawawala matapos bumagsak ang condominium building na kanilang tinutuluyan. Patuloy namang umaasa ang ahensya na makikita ang 2 pang nawawala sa Mandalay, Myanmar.
Nagpaalala ang Office of Civil Defense o OCD na dapat maging handa ang buong Luzon sa pagtama po ng pinangangambahang The Big One, isang magnitude 7.2 earthquake na posibleng maganap umano dahil sa paggalaw ng West Valley Fault. Sinabi ni OCD Administrator Undersecretary Ariel Nepomuceno, base sa kanilang pag-aaral, ang West Valley Fault ay gumagalaw ng kada 400 years at makikita sa historical data na posibleng gumalaw ito sa hindi inaasahang pagkakataon. Subalit, nilinaw rin ni Nepomuceno ang paalala na ito ay hindi para gumawa ng panic sa publiko, kundi upang magbigay ng awareness. Anya, maaaring masawi ang nasa higit 30,000 katao dahil sa The Big One. Dagdag pa ng opisyal, ang maaaring gawin ng publiko bilang paghahanda sa sakuna ay ang pagtiyak sa structural integrity ng mga bahay at gusali at pagsiguro na susunod sila sa protocol kagaya ng duck, cover and hold.
Nagpadala ang Philippine National Police o PNP ng 366 na miyembro ng kapulisan upang tumulong sa mga residenteng apektado ng pagsabog ng Bulkang Kanlaon sa Negros Island. Ayon kay PNP Chief General Romel Francisco Marbil, nakikipagtulungan ng mga pulis sa mga lokal na pamahalaan upang maisagawa ang preemptive evacuation at iba pang disaster response efforts, lalo na sa loob ng 6 na kilometrong danger zone sa paligid ng bulkan. Sa kasalukuyan, nasa 9,275 katao ang nailikas at nasa mga evacuation centers na. 70 na sa mga pulis ang mga nakadeploy sa mga evacuation sites sa La Castellana, La Carlota, Bago at Canlaon City. Hinimok ni Marbil ang publiko na makipagtulungan sa mga otoridad at manatiling alerto sa mga abiso. Tiniyak din niyang patuloy na binabantayan ng PNP ang sitwasyon at sinisigurong may sapat na suporta mga evacuees, kabilang ang tubig at iba pang pangunahing pangangailangan.
Suspendido na ang mga tourism activities sa mga lugar na malapit sa Bulkang Kanlaon sa Negros Island. Ayon sa Department of Tourism, mahigpit na nakikipag-ugnayan ang ahensya sa mga lokal na pamahalaan upang gawing prioridad ang kaligtasan at kapakanan ng mga apektadong individual ng pagsabog ng Bulkang Kanlaon. Kabilang dito ang mga trekking activities at maging ang pagbisita sa mga syudad ng La Carlota, Bago at La Castellana. Ang mga lugar sa bahagi naman ng Guimaras, Iloilo at Antique ay nakaranas na rin ng ashfall. Dahil dito, hinikayat ng Tourism Department ang publiko na manatiling alisto at sumunod lamang sa mga official advisories sa gitna ng pag-aalboroto ng bulkan. Sa ngayon, walang naiulat na na-stranded na turista. Nananatili naman na nasa alert level 3 ang Bulkang Kanlaon.
Inaasahan na magpapatupad ng dagdag singil sa kuryente ang Meralco ngayong buwan ng Abril. Ayon sa Meralco, ang nakaambang rate hike ay kasunod ng malaking paggalaw sa wholesale electricity spot market o WESM noong Marso. Iniulat ng Independent Electricity Market Operator of the Philippines na ang presyo ng WESM ay tumaas ng 95.5% noong nakaraang buwan, kung saan pumalo ito sa 5 pesos and 34 centavos per kilowatt hour. Halos doble ng average at 2 pesos and 73 centavos per kilowatt hour noong Pebrero. Ang pagtaas ay dahil sa mas malakas na demand sa gitna ng numinipis na supply na sanhi ng unscheduled power plant outages. Inaasahan din ang pagtaas sa transmission charges dahil sa mas mataas na ancillary service charges na bunsod naman ng mataas na presyo sa reserve market. Susunod, China nagbabala sa pagtulong ng USA.
Indonesians nagkukumahog mamili dahil sa tariffs.
At mas maraming sundalo ng China na tagpo ang lumalaban para sa Russia. Detalye ng mga balitang yan sa pagbabalik ng Matarang Agila International.
Brighter. It's hotter. The most awaited happening of your summer. It's the Summer Blast 2025. But wait, the best got better. Because it is NET25 Silver Anniversary. Grabe ang init ngayong Summer Blast. Kaya mag-summer outfit check na tayo para sa fun games, water park adventure, rides, neon lights na pwedeng pang selfie, fireworks. At pinaka-inaabangan nating lahat, concert all night long. Isang buong araw ito. So get your tickets now and experience the summer you'll always remember. Only at the Philippine Arena Complex, Ciudad de Victoria, Bocaue, Bulacan, on April 27, 2025. Sobrang init na ba? Let's vibe this summer blast together with NET25.
Join us at the International Tax and Investment Conference Fast Forward 2025, where industry leaders and experts will explore the future of ESG investing in the Philippines.
The country's already made a lot of progress in terms of creating opportunities for businesses to thrive.
If you think about ESG, it should be part of the business operation. So whether it is part of the product development,
we want to be global benefactors. No? We want to show the world that we're also contributing to betterment.
What we're after is securing a livable planet for the next generation.
Open for business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
Sa NET25.
Sinabi ni Ministry of National Defense spokesman Zhang Xiaogang na dapat ay itigil na raw ng Pilipinas ang umasa sa suporta ng Estados Unidos. Iginit ni Zhang na magba-backfire ang ginagawa ng Pilipinas at nagpahayag pa ito na nakikialam ang Estados Unidos sa issue ng South China Sea sa pamamagitan ng pagkukunwari na iginagalang nito ang mga bilateral treaties. Sinisiraan niya nito ang territorial sovereignty at maritime rights maging interes ng China. Ang pamamaraang ito ayon kay Zhang ay hindi gagana. Dagdag pa na opisyal, paulit-ulit daw na gumawa ng mga paglabag at provokasyon ng Pilipinas laban sa China.
美方以所谓双边条约为借口，插手南海问题，损害中方领土主权和海洋权益，甚至妄图以此威胁胁迫中方，这是不可能得逞的。需要指出的是，菲方一再对中方侵权闹事，没等域外国家不断拱火递刀，搅得南海风波不断，地区国家不得安宁，充分暴露其 搅局者和肇事方的真实面目，以外闹海得不偿失，棋子终成弃子。我们奉劝菲方放弃不切实际的幻想，早日回到对话协商的正确轨道上来。
Tinanggihan ng Australia ang alok ng China na makipagtulungan upang labanan ang US tariff policy. Sa halip ay pinatibay nito ni Australian Deputy Prime Minister Richard Marles ang commitment ng kanyang bansang palawakin pa ang kanilang pakikipagtulungan sa ibang mga bansa upang mabawasan ang economic dependence nito sa China. Sa ngayon ay ang China ang tumatayong pinakamalaking trade partner ng Australia. Subalit, nanindigan naman ang Canberra na hindi nito papanigan sa kahit sinong bansa sa harap ng geopolitical tensions. Sa ngayon ay nakatuon ang Australia sa pagpapalakas ng kalakalan nila kasama ang European Union, India, Indonesia, UK at ibang bahagi ng Middle East. Kasunod ito ng komento ng pag-uudyok ni Chinese Ambassador to Australia, Xiao Qian, na magsanib puwersa ang kanilang mga bansa upang magtataga ng multilateral trading system at magsisilbing new global government.
Lampas na sa oras ng trabaho ay bukas pa rin ang maraming tindahan ng ginto sa Indonesia. Ito'y dahil halos 200 tao ang pumipila araw-araw para bumili lamang ng maliliit na gold bars. Tumitimbang ang mga naturang gold bars ng hanggang sa 10 grams at nabibili ang mga ito sa halagang humigit kumulang 1,770,000 rupee o katumbas yan ng $105 bawat gramo.
Biasanya itu rata-rata itu harian itu kami bisa menjual sekitar 20 sampai 25 kilo. Cuman di 2 hari kemarin itu kita bisa menjual itu seluruh Indonesia itu di 65 kilo. Jadi naiknya hampir 3 kali lipat ya dari penjualan yang sebelumnya.
Naniniwala ang maraming Indonesians na ang pag-iimbak ng ginto ay magiging proteksyon sa nakaambang problema sa ekonomiya. Isang bansang Indonesia sa mga naapektuhan ng Trump tariffs at kahit na nga gumawa ng paraan ng Central Bank ng bansa ay hindi pa rin ito napigilan ang pagbaba ng halaga ng rupiah.
Aku nggak gitu ngikutin terkait hal tersebut sih gitu, tapi based on chaos yang terjadi di berbagai segmen tentunya ekonomi gitu ya. Kalau misalkan ngomongin investasi yang sifatnya fix gitu ya, yang low risk buat aku gitu. Dan pertimbanganku ya aku milih emas sih gitu.
Seluruh pasar modal hampir semuanya itu merah kami melihat, kecuali di Middle East itu ada yang hijau. Artinya bukan hanya Indonesia saja yang memiliki dampak terhadap uncertainty ini gitu, terhadap apa yang resiprokal yang dilakukan oleh Trump, Presiden Amerika Serikat. Kami juga melihat ini semacam awareness masyarakat untuk melindungi kekayaannya itu muncul gitu.
Ipinag-utos ni US President Donald Trump ang 90-day pause sa pagpapatupad ng bagong taripa.
Was this idea of doing a pause, did that just come about this morning? Can you tell us exactly what came into consideration for you and your advisors?
For a period of time, I would say this morning, over the last few days, I've been thinking about it. I've been dealing with Scott, with Howard, with some other people that are very professional, and I think it probably came together early this morning, fairly early this morning. Just wrote it up. We didn't have the use of, we didn't have access to lawyers, or we just wrote up. We wrote it up from our hearts, right? It was written from the heart, and I think it was well written too. But it was written from the heart. It was written as something that I think was very positive for the world and for us. And we don't want to hurt countries that don't need to be hurt, and they all want to negotiate. The only problem is, you can only do so many at one time. It's like, we want to do it right. We want to get it right. We want to take care of them, but we have to take care of our country. So, but this was something certainly we've been talking about for a period of time, and we decided to pull the trigger, and we did it today, and we're happy about it. I didn't know it would have that kind of an impact, but it's, I think they have the biggest increase in the history of the stock market. That's pretty good. That's pretty, you're almost, if you keep going, you're going to be back to where it was 4 weeks ago.
Paglilinaw ni Trump, pansamantalang titigil ito sa reciprocal tariffs lamang, nangangahulugang papatawan pa rin ng baseline tariff rate ang mga produktong inaangkat papasok ng Estados Unidos. Hindi naman dito kasama ang China na gumanti sa US, kung saan dinagdagan pa nila ng 34% tariff rate ng karagdagang 50% na nagresulta naman sa kabuuang 84% tariff rate para sa mga produkto ng Estados Unidos na papasok sa Beijing. Ikinagalit po ito ni Trump kung kaya't inakyat niya ang current 104% tariff rate ng China hanggang sa 125%. Umaasa si Trump na makikipag-ugnayan ng China sa kanya para magkaroon ng kasunduan. Ilang minuto matapos ang anunsyong ito ni Trump ay tumaas ang US stock market, kung saan tinatawag nila itong best day ever para sa Wall Street magmula pa noong taong 2001. Pinuri naman ni Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent ang naturang 90-day pause, kung saan sinabi nitong nagbigay oportunidad ito para sa mga bansang makipagnegosasyon sa Estados Unidos.
Good, thank you. And we saw the successful negotiating strategy that President Trump implemented a week ago today. It has brought more than 75 countries forward to negotiate. It took great courage for him to stay the course until this moment. And what we have ended up with here, as I told everyone a week ago, they are in this very spot. Do not retaliate, and you will be rewarded. So every country in the world who wants to come and negotiate, we are willing to hear you. We're going to go down to a 10% baseline tariff for them, and China will be raised to 125 due to their insistence on escalation.
Kaugnay dyan, nagmatigas ang China at tinapatan ng taripa na ipinatupad ng Estados Unidos sa kanilang mga produkto.
美方仍在对中国滥施关税，对这种霸道霸凌的行径，中方坚决反对，绝不接受。施压、威胁和讹诈不是同中方打交道的正确方式。美方如果真的想谈，就应该拿出平等、尊重、互惠的态度。如果美方置两国和国际社会的利益于不顾，执意打关税战、贸易战，中方必将奉陪到底。
Inanunsyo ng Chinese Commerce Ministry na papatawan nila ng 84% na taripa ang mga produkto ng US. Ang nasabing pagpataw ng panibagong 50% ay bilang pantapat sa ipinataw ng US na 104% na taripa sa kanila. Git ng China na makasisira ng financial markets dahil sa galaw ng US. Sa ngayon ay nakaantabay ang mga eksperto sa magiging tugon ng China sa muling pagtaas ni Donald Trump ng taripa ng China sa 125%.
美方出于一己之私，将关税作为实施极限施压、谋取私利的武器，严重侵犯各国的正当权益，严重违反世界贸易组织的规则，严重损害以规则为基础的多边贸易体制，严重冲击全球经济秩序稳定。这是公然冒天下之大不韪，与整个世界作对。我要再次强调，关税战、贸易战没有赢家，中方不愿打，但也不怕打。我们绝不会坐视中国人民的正当权益被剥夺，绝不会坐视国际经贸规则和多边贸易体制被破坏。如果美方执意打关税战、贸易战，中方必将奉陪到底。
Iniulat ni Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky mula sa nakalap na impormasyon na may higit sa 155 Chinese nationals ang lumalaban kasama ng hukbo ng Russian military sa Ukraine.
Служба безпеки України здійснює перші процесуальні дії із полоненими громадянами Китаю. Вони в Києві спілкуються зі слідчими, дають інформацію про те, як опинились на фронті, як стали учасниками цього міжнародного злочину, цієї російської війни проти України. Ми маємо інформацію також і щодо інших громадян КНР у складі російської армії з іменами, прізвищами та описом конкретних шляхів потрапляння таких солдатів в російський окупаційний контингент. Дипломатичними каналами ми доведемо необхідну інформацію до китайської сторони. І, звісно, до кожного у світі, хто чув, як в Пекіні говорили, що не можна розпалювати цю війну ще більше і розширювати її масштаб. Залучення ще й громадян Китаю у цю війну – це точно розпалення більшої проблеми. І на це потрібно абсолютно принципово реагувати. Посилювати окупаційний контингент і говорити про мир – це взаємовиключні речі. Очікуємо також і на принциповість партнерів, на принциповість в підтримці України.
Sinabi niya sa reporters ng Kiev na sila'y nirecruit ng Russia galing sa mga social media platforms. Dagdag rito ang paghuli ng 2 Chinese men na nakitang nakikipaglaban kasama ng Russian army. Itinatanggi ng Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Lin Jian ang mga paratang na ito at sinasabing walang basehan. Ayon pa rito, patuloy nilang hinihikayat ang kanilang mga mamamayan na umiwas sa mga lugar na ito sa abot ng kanilang makakaya.
我要重申，中国不是乌克兰危机的制造者，也不是当事方。我们是危机和平解决的坚定支持者和积极推动者。中国政府始终要求本国公民远离武装冲突区域，避免以任何形式卷入武装冲突，尤其应避免参加任何一方军事行动。我们奉劝有关方面正确清醒地认识中方的作用，不要发表不负责任的言论。
Nasa Italy po ngayon sina King Charles at Queen Camilla para sa isang state visit. Nakipagpulo ang hari kay Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni sa Verdant Garden sa Villa Pamphili. Obserbasyon ng ilang analyst, sinisikap ng British monarchy na makipag-ugnayan sa mga matagalan nitong kaalyado sa European Union. Ito raw ay dahil hindi pa rin nila matanggap na maraming leader ng EU ang epekto ng Brexit o pagkalas ng Britain sa nasabing alyansa. Samantala, sa talumpati ni King Charles sa joint session ng Italian Parliament, nagbabala ito tungkol sa mga kasalukuyang krisis na nakakaapekto sa mundo. Pinuri rin ng hari ang pagkakaisa ng Britain at ng Italy para sa panahong kailangan sila ng Ukraine.
Today, sadly, the echoes of those times which we fervently hoped had been consigned to history reverberate across our continent. Our younger generations could now see in the news every day on their smartphones and tablets that peace is never to be taken for granted. Britain and Italy stand today united in defense of the democratic values we share. Our countries have both stood by Ukraine in her hour of need and welcomed many thousands of Ukrainians requiring shelter.
Ipinahayag ng mga lider mula sa iba't ibang bansa ang kani-kanilang reaksyon sa pansamantalang pagtigil ng mga taripa ng US.
우리 시간으로 오늘부터 적용되게 돼 있던 미국의 상호 관세 25%가 우리나라가 협상을 하는 그러한 동안 약 3달 동안 90일 동안 일단 유예가 되고 기본적으로 부과되는 10%만 부과하는 것으로 그렇게 결정이 됐습니다.
Tinanggap ni Acting President Han Duck-soo ng South Korea ang 90-day pause na taripa na nakatakdang ipatupad ni Donald Trump. Binibigyan diin ng South Korea na malaking porsyento ang umaasa sa kalakalan para sa kanilang ekonomiya na may kaugnayan sa mga pangunahing produkto katulad ng sasakyan at bakal. Sa Thailand naman, sinabi ni Prime Minister Paitongtarn Shinawat na isang magandang pagkakataon nito para mapabuti ang kanilang at ang
ก็แน่นอนว่าแพลนของเราเองที่ทำในประเทศเนี่ยเราก็ต้องเตรียมให้ดีขึ้นเรื่อยๆตอนนี้เราก็มองทุกมิติจริงๆค่อนข้างครบอยู่แล้วนะคะเหลือแต่ว่าเวลาที่จะได้เข้าไปคุยมากกว่าค่ะ
Samantala, sinabi ni Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez na walang panalo sa isang trade war at inilarawan ang pansamantalang pag-pause ng taripa bilang isang bukas na pinto para sa negosasyon. Inaasahan niyang magiging pagkakataon ito para sa mga bansa na makipagkasunduan na makikinabang ang lahat ng partido.
Que nadie gana en una guerra comercial. Todos pierden. Por eso, la medida anunciada por la administración estadounidense, a falta de ver exactamente los matices de la misma, nos parece una puerta a la negociación y, por tanto, al acuerdo entre países. Desde este foro, come on.
Namayagpag ang stock market matapos ipahayag ni US President Donald Trump na pansamantala nitong ihihinto ang reciprocal tariffs. Sinasabi ng marami na ito ay isa sa pinakamagandang araw sa kasaysayan ng markets. Si Leo Velasco para sa balita.
Noong Miyerkules, sa araw na dapat magsimula ang reciprocal tariffs ng US sa mga produktong inaangkat nito, inanunsyo ni Pangulong Donald Trump na ipatutupad nito ang 90-day tariff pause. Ito ay habang nakikipagnegosasyon sa US ang dose-dosenang mga bansa ukol sa taripa. Ayon sa Pangulo, ibababa nito agad-agad ang taripa sa 10% para sa karamihan ng bansa. Ang Dow Jones Industrial Average ay tumaas ng 2,963 points o 7.9% at nagsara sa 40,608. Samantalang ang broad-based S&P 500 ay umakyat ng 474 points o 9.5% sa 5,457. Ang Nasdaq Composite Index naman ay tumalon ng 1,857 points o 12.2%. Ayon sa financial services company na FactSet, ang kinita ng S&P 500 ay pinakamalaking isang araw nakita mula noong October 2008. Subalit isang pagtatangi ang ipinasya ni Pangulong Trump sa China. Ayon sa Pangulo, itataas nito agad-agad ang tariff rate sa mga produkto ng China ng 125%. Sinabi ni Trump na ito ay dahil sa kakulangan ng respeto ng China sa pambuong mundong kalakalan. Nangamba ang mga mangangalakal dahil sa uminit na trade war kamakailan bunga ng reciprocal tariffs ng US. Nagbabala ang mga ekonomista ukol sa posibilidad na resesyon na makakapinsalaan nila sa mga korporasyon at mga mamimili dahil sa itataas ng presyo ng mga bilihin lalo na ang mga produkto mula sa ibang bansa. Sa kabila ng tariff pause, nanatiling issue para sa mga negosyo sa US ang pabagong-bagong ihip ng hangin na maaaring magsimula muli ang taripa matapos ang 70 araw na pansamantalang paghinto nito. Leo Velasco para sa mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Hiniling naman ni tech billionaire Elon Musk na magkaroon ng zero tariff situation sa pagitan ng Estados Unidos at ng Europa.
Well, I hope that I hope that the United States and Europe can establish a very close partnership. We obviously are, there's an alliance already, but I'm hopeful that there can be a very close relationship with America and Europe. I'm hopeful, for example, with the tariffs, that at the end of the day, I hope it is agreed that both Europe and the United States should move, ideally, in my view, to a zero tariff situation, effectively creating a free trade zone between Europe and North America. That would be that's what I hope occurs, and also more freedom of people to move between Europe and North America, if they wish. If they wish to work in Europe or wish to work in America, they should be allowed to do so, in my view. So that has certainly been my advice to the president.
Sinabi ni Musk sa isang video conference kasama si right-wing Italian Deputy Prime Minister Matteo Salvini, ang free trade zone ng US at ng Europa ay inaasahan niyang lilikan ng isang sitwasyon na magiging mas malaya ang mga mamamayan nila na lumipat o makipagsapalaran kung saan man nila naisin, sa Amerika man o sa Europa. Matatandaang nakaraang linggo lamang nang i-anunsyo ni US President Donald Trump ang 20% na dagdag taripa sa kanilang mga higanteng trading partners sa European Union. Iginiit ni Trump na ang Estados Unidos ay ninanakawan at inaabuso umano ng trading policies ng ibang bansa. Naniniwala rin ang Washington leader na ang next era ng US ay Golden Age of America. Samantala, nauna nang sinabi ng Italian Economy Minister Giancarlo Giorgetti na iniiwasan nilang magkaroon ng gulo sa US sa pagsunod nito sa Trump tariffs.
Naghangin naman ang reklamo ang China laban sa Estados Unidos sa Dispute Settlement Mechanism ng World Trade Organization o WTO. Ito'y matapos itaas ng Estados Unidos ang tinatawag na reciprocal tariff sa mga Chinese products na i-export sa US ng may karagdagang 50%. Ayon sa isang tagapagsalita ng Chinese Ministry of Commerce, ang mga panukalang taripa ng Estados Unidos ay malubhang lumalabag sa mga patakaran ng WTO. Ang dagdag 50% tariff hike anya ay isang grave mistake na pagpapakita ng umano'y unilateral bullying ng Estados Unidos. Tiniyak ng China na pangangalagaan nito ang mga lehitimong karapatan at interes ng bansa, alinsunod sa mga patakaran ng WTO, at matatag-an nilang itataguyod nito ang multilateral na sistemang pangangalakal at ang pandaigdigang kaayusang pangkabuhayan at pangkalakalan. Kaugnay nito, ipinagmalaki ni Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesman Lin Jian ang mga kontribusyon ng China sa pandaigdigang ekonomiya. Bilang second largest economy sa mundo, consistent anya ang China sa pag-aambag ng 30% sa global economic growth. Handa rin anya ang China na makipagtulungan sa lahat ng partido para itaguyod ang tunay na multilateralism.
中国践行高水平对外开放承诺，持续营造市场化、法治化、国际化的一流营商环境，让中国经济每个百分点的增长都为各国企业带来更多的利好。中国愿同各方一道，坚持真正的多边主义，共同反对各种形式的单边主义、保护主义，携手抵御风险挑战，推动实现普惠包容的经济全球化。
Inanunsyo naman ng European Commission ang trade countermeasures bilang pantapat sa taripa na ipinataw ng US.
These tariffs come first and foremost at immense costs for US consumers and businesses, but at the same time they have a massive impact on the global economy. Especially hard hit are the developing countries, and this is a major turning point for the United States. Nonetheless, we stand ready to negotiate with the United States. Indeed, we have offered 0 for 0 tariffs for industrial goods, as we have successfully done with many other trading partners, because Europe is always ready for a good deal, so we keep it on the table. But we are also prepared to respond through countermeasures and defend our interests. And in addition, we will also protect ourselves against indirect effects through trade diversion. And for this purpose, we will set up an import surveillance task force. We will work with industry to make sure we have the necessary evidence base for our policy measures. And we will stay in very close contact to minimize effects of our actions on each other.
Ayon sa European Commission, nagkaisa ang European Union members para ipatupad ang nasabing taripa. Kasunod ito ng pag-anunsyo ni Donald Trump ng 90-day pause sa kanyang tariff policy. Malugod na tinanggap ni European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen ang naturang anunsyo ni Donald Trump kung saan sinabi niyang bukas ang kanilang political bloc na makipagnegosasyon sa Estados Unidos. Paglilinaw nilang ang nasabing tariff countermeasures ay maaaring isuspinde ng anumang oras. Itinuturing kasi ng EU members na ang taripa na ipinataw ng US ay hindi makatarungan at nakasisira sa ekonomiya ng mga bansa sa Europa at maging sa Estados Unidos.
And I've no doubt that European unity is our strength here, and European unity will be maintained. That's the first step. Second step then is for the Commission later today, probably tonight, to publish the countermeasures in relation to steel and aluminium. And then thirdly, in the background and constantly, is trying to find a way forward in terms of negotiation. So everything we do here today, everything we do in the days ahead, has to be to create the environment that brings the US administration to the table. And I think there are many, many reasons, not just here, but in the global markets, that are going to make that an inevitability at the time ahead.
Susunod, speedboat sa Brazil nasunog.
Deal ng Prada and Versace ilalabas na.
At mga ipis gamit sa search and rescue sa Myanmar. Iba pang mga balita sa pagbabalik ng Mata ng Agila International.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba, sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa new era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Nagbabalik ang mata ng Agila International at sa pagpapatuloy ng ating mga balita ngayong gabi. Iniulat ng Beijing Emergency Management Bureau na higit 800 bumbero ang kanilang pinadala para apulahin ang forest fires sa Shanxi, China. Ayon sa lokal na ulat, nagsimula ang sunog dahil sa burning practices ng mga locals para sa Qingming holiday. Wala namang napaulat na nasawi dahil sa sunog. Subalit, inalerto na ng mga otoridad ang mga residente sa potential na drought o tagtuyot dahil sa patuloy na pagtaas ng temperatura. Inaasahan ding ngayong summer holiday season tataas ang kaso ng mga sunog sa rehiyon.
Inaresto ang isang Congress member sa India matapos masangkot sa 3 hit-and-run cases sa Jaipur, India. Ayon sa ulat ng Jaipur Police, kinilalang suspect bilang si Usman Khan. Nakumpirma rin na nakainom si Khan habang siya'y nagmamaneho ng kanyang kotse. Nangyaring insidente simula 9:50 ng gabi kung saan 3 individual ang nasawi rito. Naisugod pa ang mga biktima sa ospital pero dito na sila namatay. Na-identify naman ng mga otoridad ang mga nasawi bilang sina Mamta Kanwar Awadesh Parik at Virendra Singh. Higit sa kanila, may iba pang 9 na katao ang nasaktan din mula sa hit-and-run attack. Nasawi naman ang isang 70 anyos na babae matapos aksidenteng sagasaan ng sasakyan ng doktor sa TAPS Hospital sa Boisar, Mumbai. Ayon sa ulat, dumalaw si Chayalata Arekar sa ospital para sa pagpapagamot ng kanyang asawa. Sa poll sa CCTV footage ang insidente kung saan makikitang papalabas siya ng main entrance ng gusali nang may pulang kotse na biglang lumiko habang siya'y tatawid sa kalsada. Dito na siya dire-diretsong inararo at pumapailalim sa sasakyan. Agad siyang sinugod sa ospital ngunit binawian rin siya agad ng buhay. Inaresto naman ng Tarapur Police ang suspect na doktor. Sinimula na ring magsagawa ng hiwalay na investigasyon ng mga otoridad hinggil sa insidente.
Nabalot na malaking apoy ang isang pampasaherong speedboat sa isang floating fuel station sa Brazil. Pinaniniwala ang nagliyab ang barko habang nagpapakarga ito ng gasolina bago ito bumiyahe. Batay sa investigasyon ng pulisya, walang laman ng barko nang sumiklab ang apoy sa speedboat. Kaagad ding nakontrol ng mga nakaantabay na crew ang apoy bago pa ito umabot sa fuel pumps ng fuel station. Wala namang naiulat na nasaktan o nasawi sa nasabing insidente.
Nagtipon sa labas ng United Nations Office sa Caracas ang mga kamag-anak ng migranteng Venezuelans na nakadetene ngayon sa El Salvador. Narito ang report ni JC Yumul.
Emosyonal ang naging protesta ng dose-dose ng demonstrador. Hawak na mga ito ang mga karatulang nagsasabing, pauwiin ang aming mga pamilya. Ang mga mensahe nila ay para kay Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele.
Que se pronuncien en las autoridades competentes de la ONU aquí en Venezuela y nos den respuestas de fe de vida, de su condición, cómo están, cómo se encuentran, que nos permitan, aunque sea por lo menos llamarlos, una llamada, algo, que se pronuncien a las entes autoridades prudentes y competentes en el caso.
Ni siquiera quiero gritar, quiero hablar con respeto al presidente Trump y a Bukele. Con humildad, tal vez no es la manera, pero yo sí le quiero pedir con el corazón en la mano que nos devuelvan a nuestros hijos. Nosotros los venezolanos somos muy unidos. Nuestra prioridad es nuestra familia. Si nos falta uno, nos falta todo. Y eso es lo único que nosotros necesitamos, que por favor nos devuelvan a nuestros hijos.
Ang detention ay mula sa kontrobersyal na kasunduan ng Estados Unidos at El Salvador matapos ipatupad ni US President Donald Trump ang 1798 Alien Enemies Act sa pasimula ng Abril. Sa ilalim ng kasunduan, ang inaakusahan ng mga miyembro ng Venezuelan gang na Tren de Aragua ay idineport papuntang El Salvador imbes na sa Venezuela. Itinanggi ng mga nagpoprotestang kamag-anak na sangkot ang kanika nilang mga pamilya at sila din ay walang kaugnayan sa gang. Idiniin ng mga ito na ordinaryong mga migrante ang mga kanika nilang mga mahal sa buhay na nagbabaka sakali lamang para sa magandang buhay. Sa kasalukuyan, nakadetain ang dineport na Venezuelans sa Sikot, ang napakalaking maximum security prison ng El Salvador na kilala dahil sa napakahigpit na itong pamamalakad. Ang nangangamba ang ilang human rights organization ukol sa basihan ng legal para sa detentions at sa kondisyon na kinahaharap ng mga migrante. JC Yumul para sa mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Nag-alok ang European Commission ng 0 for 0 tariff deal upang makaiwas sa posibleng trade war kay US President Donald Trump. Apektado kasi ng 20% tariff ng US ang ilang poultry at agricultural products sa Europa. Narito si Bernhard Gonzaga para sa karagdagang detalye.
Humaharap ang 27 nation bloc sa 25% import tariffs sa bakal, aluminyo at mga sasakyan. Gayon din ng mas malawak na 20% tariffs simula 9 ng Abril sa halos lahat ng iba pang mga produkto. Ito ay sa ilalim ng tuntunin ni Pangulong Donald Trump na balikan ang mga bansang anyay nagpapataw ng mataas na balakid sa US imports. Kasama sa listahan ng mga produktong papataw ng UE ng retaliatory tariffs ang poultry, ibang karne, fruit, cereals, vegetable oils, kahoy, carpet, damit, at glassware. Kabilang din ang chewing gum, dental floss, ibang mamahaling bato, lawn mowers, vacuum cleaners, pati na ang toilet paper. Nakatakdang aprobahan ng UE ang unang retaliatory measures ngayong linggo. Sisimula ng bloc na mangolekta ng taripa sa 15 ng Abril. Susundan ito sa katapusan ng buwan. Bernhard Gonzaga para sa Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Nakipagpulong naman ang Prime Minister ng Poland sa mga kinatawan ng auto industry ng bansa upang talakayin ang epekto ng mga bagong taripa ng Estados Unidos. Alamin natin ang mga detalye ng balita niya mula kay Marjorie Quintos.
Binigyang diin ni Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk ang kahalagahan ng mga solusyon upang dumepensa laban sa mga negatibong epekto ng matataas ng taripa kesa ang magreklamo ng magreklamo ukol sa tariff war.
W ostatnich decyzjach w sprawie ceł podjętych przez administrację prezydenta Trumpa naszym zadaniem jest nie narzekać, tylko szukać takich rozwiązań czy takich działań, a także waszych rekomendacji, jeśli chodzi o moje działania na arenie europejskiej, które uchronią nas od albo przynajmniej zredukują negatywne skutki tych wysokich ceł. Nie chcę mówić o wojnie celnej, chociaż niektórzy używają przecież tego sformułowania.
Nakipagpulong si Tusk sa ilang mga kinatawan ng industriya ng sasakyan upang pag-usapan ang sitwasyon ng taripa ng US at kung paano nila susolusyonan ito. Pampito sa mundo ang Poland pagdating sa pag-i-export ng car parts. Pangalawa naman ito sa European Union.
Stany Zjednoczone to nasz 8. największy rynek eksportowy. W tak zwanej wartości dodanej to 2. największy rynek eksportowy. Dlatego chcemy spotkać się z tymi sektorami, z przedstawicielami tych sektorów naszej gospodarki, które stanowią silnik napędowy polskiego eksportu. Z całą pewnością branża motoryzacyjna jest właśnie takim sektorem.
Ayon sa auto industry representatives ng Poland, dahil sa inaabangang epekto ng mga taripa sa produksyon at ekonomiya, tatamaan nito ang mga trabaho.
Milion samochodów, który jest wysyłany do Stanów Zjednoczonych, jeżeli będzie mniej tych samochodów wysłanych, to będzie problem. Dla naszych polskich zakładów dostarczenie tych lub niedostarczenie tych iluś procent części może spowodować bardzo poważne kłopoty.
Według naszych szacunków takich wewnętrznych, bardzo podobne mamy cyferki, wyszło nam, że to spowoduje pośrednio spadek PKB 0,45% i utratę 13 000 miejsc pracy w Polsce, ale głównie w sektorze dostawców motoryzacyjnych.
Marjorie Quintos para sa mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Ayon sa mga media sources, posibleng i-anunsyo ngayong linggo kung matutuloy ang pagbili ng Prada sa kalaban nitong Versace. Babayaran nila ng Prada ang Versace ng $1.1 billion. Nakakuha rin ng 4-week access ang Prada sa financial data ng Versace pero in-extend daw ito para mas masusing pag-aralan ng nabalitang takeover.
Ibinahagi ng mga Italyano ang kanilang pagkabahala sa posibleng pagtaas ng presyo ng iPhone dahil po sa epekto ng trade war. Batay kasi sa mga projections mula sa Rosenblatt Securities, ang presyo ng isang high-end na iPhone ay maaaring umabot sa halagang $2,300 kung ipapasa ng Apple ang mga gastos sa mga mamimili.
Non c'è un'alternativa europea? Qual è? Senza dazi non c'è nulla. O compri dalla Cina o compri dall'America, ma non è che c'è alternativa, molto semplicemente, purtroppo. Chi può paga, chi non può piange.
Il prezzo è già abbastanza elevato, si paventava sui quotidiani addirittura che arrivasse a €2.300, penso che sia al di fuori dalla portata di un bel po' di italiani, credo, per cui non credo al momento, quindi al momento mi tengo il mio iPhone 14.
Che è un massacro, vedo che ci si allontana sempre di più anziché avvicinarsi in qualche modo, culturalmente, economicamente. Ho anche una pessima idea dell'Europa, soprattutto in tema di riarmo e di partecipazione a eventuali guerre, per cui speriamo bene.
Samantala, nakatakdang makipagkita si Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni kay US President Donald Trump sa April 17 upang talakayin ang mga ipinataw na taripa ng Estados Unidos sa European Union imports.
Samantala, posible namang tumaas ang sales ng Samsung phones dahil sa epekto ng Trump tariffs. Sinasabi ng mga analysts na kayang talunin ng Samsung sales ang forecast nito dahil maraming consumers ngayon na nagkukumahog na bumili ng mga smartphones ng Samsung. Ayon sa tech giant, aabot sa $4.5 billion ang operating profit nito para sa January to March quarter. Kahit bumagsak ang presyo ng memory chips nito, nakitaan din ng isang analyst na tumaas ang volume sales ng Samsung dahil maraming customer ang nag-iimbak ng memory chips. Inaasahang ilalabas ng Samsung ang detalyadong earnings nito sa huling linggo ng buwang ito.
Matapos naman na malakas na lindol na tumama sa Myanmar noong Marso, nagpadala ang Singapore ng mga cyborg na EPs upang tumulong sa search and rescue operations. Nilagyan ng mga microsensors at mga devices na pinapalakas ng mga microbatteries ang mga EPs na may kakayahang mag-navigate sa mga makikitid na espasyo sa ilalim ng mga guho. Sa pamamagitan ng teknolohiyang ito, mas pinadali ang pagtukoy at pagsagip sa mga posibleng nakaligtas mula sa guho. Ipinagmamalaki ng Singapore ang inisyatibong bilang bahagi ng kanilang patuloy na pagsuporta sa mga makabagong solusyon sa mga operasyon ng paghahanap at pagsagip. Ang paggamit ng mga cyborg na EPs ay isang halimbawa ng pagsasanib ng kalikasan at ng teknolohiya upang matugunan ang mga hamon sa mga sitwasyong pang-emergency. Ang hakbang na ito ay nagbigay diin sa kahalagahan ng inobasyon sa mga operasyon ng pagsagip, lalo na sa mga lugar na may mahirap na access. Ang matagumpay na paggamit ng mga cyborg na EPs sa Myanmar ay nagbukas ng posibilidad para sa paggamit ng ganitong uri ng teknolohiya sa mga susunod na operasyon ng paghahanap at pagsagip sa buong mundo.
Teknolohiya pa rin iprinisinta sa isang pagdinig sa New York State Supreme Court ang paggamit ng AI-generated avatar para sa isang kaso ng employment dispute. Ginamit ito ni Jerome Duwald na may pakay na mas maging maayos ang presentasyon, ngunit hindi pinagbigay alam sa korte. Ikinagalit ito ni Judge Sally Manzanet Daniels na agad pinatigil ang pagdinig at ipinahayag ang kanyang pagkadismaya kay Duwald. Humingi ng paumanhin si Duwald sa korte at sinabing wala siyang masamang intensyon sa paggamit nito.
At narito po kami para maghatid ng balita sa anumang dako ng mundo. Magandang gabi po. Ako po muli si Ricky Matay.
Ako si Nina Richie Lago Flores. Ito ang mata ng Agila International. Para naman sa iba pang mga balitang nangyari rin sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo, punta tayo kay Alma Angeles para sa NET25 World News. Take it away, Alma.
Thank you, Nina and Ricky. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alma Angeles for NET25 World News. On tonight's headlines. A dramatic about-face from President Trump just hours after imposing sweeping tariffs on numerous nations. He announced a temporary rollback while simultaneously escalating trade tensions with China.
Well, I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, you know? They were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid, including China. China wants to make a deal. They just don't know how quite to go about it. You know, it's one of those things they don't know how quite. They're proud people.
And the news starts now. A dramatic about-face from President Trump just hours after imposing sweeping tariffs on numerous nations. He announced a temporary rollback while simultaneously escalating trade tensions with China. Now, this sudden shift triggered a massive stock market rally following a period of intense volatility that had rattled global markets and raised recession fears. Take a look.
U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday announced he would pause his reciprocal tariffs on many countries for 90 days. But he raised tariffs further on imports from China. The announcement came less than 24 hours after steep new tariffs kicked in on imports from dozens of trading partners.
Well, I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, you know? They were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid.
U.S. stocks surged following the announcement, with the benchmark S&P 500 climbing more than 9%. Trump's tariffs had hammered markets, raised the odds of recession, and prompted retaliatory responses from China and the European Union. Trump said he would raise the tariff on Chinese imports to 125%, from the 104% level that took effect at midnight, further escalating a high-stakes confrontation between the world's two largest economies. He said he would at the same time suspend targeted tariffs on other countries for 90 days to allow time for U.S. officials to negotiate with countries that have sought to reduce them.
The Trump administration is really doubling down on being tough on China. China is certainly not backing off. I think it'll be interesting to see whether China reciprocates for a third time. I think that could be likely. But this is likely to reshape global trade if this persists. If nothing changes, 125% tariffs on Chinese exports to the U.S. is immense. We import a massive amount, hundreds of billions of dollars from China. That will have to go somewhere else. I think it's going to rapidly change supply chains for companies who now operate heavily in China. That's already been happening the last few years. You know, the seeds were sown for a lot of movement for companies like Apple and Nike and many others to shift to countries like Vietnam and India and other South Asian countries where production costs are obviously lower than they would be in the US, which is why the reciprocal tariffs were so damaging, is because the scope was so broad. There was really nowhere to hide. But now, assuming deals are going to be done and things are going to sort of develop at a much calmer pace, it's very likely that companies can have the confidence to start to invest in moving their supply chains to countries that are not going to have, 50, 100% tariffs. And that is going to squeeze China. It's certainly still going to be, a cost impact to the consumer, but a much lower one than what we were going to have even, again, a day ago.
A 10% blanket duty on almost all U.S. imports will remain in place.
Nothing's over yet, but we have a tremendous amount of spirit from other countries, including China. China wants to make a deal. They just don't know how quite to go about it. It's one of those things they don't know how quite. They're proud people. And President Xi's a proud man. I know him very well. And they don't know quite how to go about it, but they'll figure it out. They're in the process of figuring it out, but they want to make a deal.
This is chaos. This is government by chaos.
The top Democrat in the U.S. Senate, Chuck Schumer, blamed Trump for hurting the country, but said he was gratified by the president's latest move.
Donald Trump is feeling the heat from Democrats and across America about how bad these tariffs are. He is reeling, he is retreating, and that is a good thing. We are going to continue to put the heat on him because there are still much damaging tariffs in place.
Since Trump announced broad tariffs late on April 2nd, stocks had fallen more than 12% for their biggest four-day sell-off in 5 years.
I think this is a massive, massive benefit for consumers, for investors. I think everybody's breathing a sigh of relief because it's been extremely chaotic for the last few days. Obviously, this leaves us with at least 90 days of slightly more stability than we've had, which is great. I think it puts investors in a position where they can hopefully reset, regroup, and probably rebalance. If anybody has been really sweating this market drop, it's time to readjust your risk tolerance and your risk exposure to try to better reflect exactly how much you can really take.
Meanwhile, China's Commerce Ministry says it's open to trade talks with the U.S., but insists any dialogue must be based on equality and mutual respect.
China's position is clear and consistent. The door to talks is open, but dialogue must be conducted on an equal basis with mutual respect. China will stand by its position until the end. Pressuring, threatening, and blackmailing are not the correct ways to deal with China. We hope that the U.S. will work with China. Based on the principles of mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and a win-win cooperation, we will properly resolve differences through dialogue and consultation. Thank you.
通过对话、协商、妥善解决分歧。谢谢。
I have reiterated China's position many times, and it is very clear. We do not provoke trouble, nor do we fear trouble. The legitimate development rights of the Chinese people and the people of the world cannot be taken away. China's and like all other countries' sovereignty, security, and development interests should not be infringed upon.
Tensions between the United States and China continue to escalate, with a new diplomatic row emerging alongside ongoing trade disputes. The controversy centers on recent comments made by U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance during a Fox News interview. Let's listen to exactly what Vice President Vance said.
Ask ourselves, what has the globalist economy gotten the United States of America? And the answer is fundamentally it's based on two principles: incurring a huge amount of debt to buy things that other countries make for us. And to make it a little bit more crystal clear, we borrow money from Chinese peasants to buy the things those Chinese peasants manufacture. That is not a recipe for economic prosperity. It's not a recipe for low prices, and it's not a recipe for good jobs in the United States of America.
Vance's reference to Chinese citizens as peasants has triggered widespread backlash in China, becoming a trending topic on social media platforms with over 140 million views. Many users condemn the remarks as disrespectful, with some even calling for the vice president to be barred from entering China. The Chinese government has officially responded through Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian. Here's what he had to say.
China's position on China-U.S. trade relations has been made very clear. It is surprising and saddening to hear such ignorant and disrespectful remarks from this vice president.
Critics have pointed to the irony of Vance's statement, noting his own humble beginnings that he detailed in his memoir, Hillbilly Elegy. They've contrasted his background with China's significant advancements in technology and infrastructure in recent decades. This diplomatic incident adds another layer of complexity to already strained U.S.-China relations, which have been further complicated by ongoing trade disputes and recent tariff escalations. The Chinese government has reiterated its commitment to defending its interests, warning it will fight to the end in response to U.S. trade measures. The international community continues to watch these developments closely, recognizing the potential global implications for both trade and diplomacy. Nevada Congressman Stephen Horsford berated United States Trade Representative Jameson Greer on the Trump administration's escalating tariff policy. Let's listen in.
Representative, are you aware that the tariffs have been paused?
I am, yes.
When were you made aware of that?
Well, I understood the decision was made a few minutes ago. It's
sitting here
under discussion.
Sitting here under discussion. So did you know that this was under discussion, and why did you not include that as part of your opening remarks?
So typically what I don't do is divulge the contents of my discussions with
What are the
President
details of the
Congress.
pause?
Well, my understanding is that because so many countries have decided not to retaliate, we're going to have about 90 days.
No, excuse me? China increased their tariffs on the United States. Trump blinked.
What's the blink, sir?
What do you know about this pause? What are the details of it?
Well, the details, as I understand it, is that China continues to retaliate. Other countries didn't retaliate. The president 2 or 3 days ago said we wanted to negotiate with those countries that asked for meetings. That's what we're doing.
What are the
We've had
details? How long is the pause? How many days? How many weeks?
I understand it's 90 days. I haven't spoken to the president since I've been in
So the
this
trade
hearing.
representative hasn't spoken to the president of the United States about a global reordering of trade.
Yes, I have. I've just been in the hearing with you, sir.
But yet he announced it on a tweet. Who's in charge?
The president of the United States is in charge.
And what do you know about those details?
Well, as I mentioned,
it looks like your boss just pulled the rug out from under you. People who are retiring, whose benefits have declined. Is this market manipulation?
No.
Why not? If it was a plan, if it was always the plan, how is this not market manipulation?
It's not market manipulation, sir.
Well, then what is it? Because it sure is not a strategy.
We're trying to reset the global trade system.
The ripple effects of U.S. tariff policies are causing significant concern across Asia, with analysts warning of potential economic instability and social unrest. Take a look.
So for the people in Vietnam or Thailand, if they work in the factories now, it's not easy anymore for them to find jobs there. If there were no tariffs, then they might enjoy a large raise, bigger package. But if there is reciprocal tariffs, these factories might need to be relocated again. So definitely very bad news for those workers there. So that's for the supply side.
That's Mei Yuan, Assistant Professor of Economics at Singapore Management University, highlighting the immediate impact on workers in manufacturing hubs. The uncertainty surrounding these tariffs is also a major concern.
Plus, the worry about the uncertainty, right? Now, those countries have 90 days for 10%. Nobody knows what will happen after 90 days, right? So maybe Vietnam will face 46% again, right? So that means potential investors will hold back. They won't do any large-scale investment in those countries.
The potential for widespread unemployment stemming from these policies raises serious concerns about social stability.
Massive unemployment because of this policy, because of the tariffs, then I think it's a real possibility. But it also depends on how the government responds, right? Bangladesh already had a large scale kind of social unrest a few months ago. Maybe a little push would also trigger another even bigger social unrest.
It's not just manufacturing jobs at stake. Consumer goods are also expected to see price increases.
Again, using the iPhone example, right? If some model the production of some models have to be shipped back to the US, right, in an extreme scenario, those models will be super expensive, and consumers in other countries will be affected. Right? Those are the products that involve more complex global supply chain, right? For other, grocery products like foods, maybe they are more, majority of these kind of products are supplied within the Asian region. So they are less affected.
While some economies may be more insulated than others, a global recession triggered by these tariffs would have far-reaching consequences.
So these countries, they have benefited tremendously from the first US-China trade war. Now, because of the reciprocal tariffs, for example, Trump announced that the tariff on Vietnam would be 46%. That's a huge amount of tariff, and that would seriously hit those economies. Other economies like Singapore are not directly affected. Singapore's major exports are semiconductors and pharmaceuticals, which are exempted from the reciprocal tariffs. But if the tariffs are dragging the whole global economy into a recession, then these economies like Singapore would also have to bear the spillover effect.
Bangladesh's garment industry, vital to its economy, faces challenges from rising U.S. tariffs, threatening exports, jobs, and economic stability. Crystal Mapa is in Bangladesh for this report.
Yes, Alma. Here in Bangladesh, the nation's vital garment industry is reeling after President Trump's latest tariff announcement. A newly imposed 37% tax on exports to the United States has sent shockwaves through the sector. Industry leaders are expressing shock, but also hope that the interim government led by Mohammed Yunus can renegotiate with the U.S. The United States is Bangladesh's largest market for its $32 billion garment industry, accounting for nearly $10 billion in exports. Millions of workers, mostly women, face potential financial hardship if the tariffs remain. The garment sector is crucial to Bangladesh economy, representing over 80% of total exports, employing 4 million people and contributing roughly 10% to the country's GDP. This latest tariff blow comes after a year of disruptions, including violent protests that ousted the previous prime minister, casting doubt on the industry's stability. The stakes are high for Bangladesh. The industry and the government now face the urgent challenge of mitigating the impact of these new tariffs and preserving the livelihoods of millions. Reporting here from Bangladesh, this is Crystal Mapa for NET25 World News. Back to you, Alma.
The landscape for developing Asia and the Pacific's economic growth was relatively stable prior to the recent U.S. reciprocal tariff announcement. Now, the region was projected to grow at 4.9% this year and 4.7% next, down from 5% last year. Now, here's ADB Chief Economist Albert Park, who also anticipated easing inflation driven by lower global food and energy prices. However, these tariffs have fundamentally altered this outlook.
Not taking into account new U.S. reciprocal tariffs announced last week, we were expecting economies in developing Asia and the Pacific to grow by 4.9% this year and 4.7% next year, down from 5% last year. Inflation was expected to ease to 2.3% in 2025 and 2.2% in 2026 as global food and energy prices continue to drop. Solid domestic demand and resilient exports led by electronics and semiconductors have been supporting growth. But if U.S. reciprocal tariffs are fully implemented, it will increase uncertainty and is likely to slow trade, investment, and growth in the region. Despite the challenging environment, Asian economies should maintain their commitment to open trade and investment, which have supported the region's growth and resilience, and pursue cooperative efforts to resolve differences and deepen regional economic integration.
Southeast Asian countries are pressing for dialogue with the U.S. on trade tariffs and will not impose retaliatory measures, economic ministers of the regional bloc of ASEAN said today. Now, before a 90-day pause was announced by U.S. President Donald Trump on the implementation of U.S. tariffs, 6 of 9 Southeast Asian countries targeted by the U.S. administration were slapped with much bigger than expected tariffs of between 32% and 49%. Now, by comparison, the level for the European Union was 20%, Japan was 24%, and India's 27%. We expressed our common intention to engage in a frank and constructive dialogue with the U.S. to address trade-related concerns. Open communication and collaboration will be crucial to ensuring a balanced and sustainable relationship, according to the Association of Southeast Asian Nations Economic Ministers in a statement, which expressed concern about the tariffs and their impact. Following a meeting on Thursday, the ministers said they reaffirmed their support for a predictable, fair, and rules-based multilateral trading system. The 10-member ASEAN is collectively the world's 5th biggest economy, and its members are heavily reliant on exports as a driver of growth.
I would like to summarize perhaps 4 points that were raised. The first one is that the ASEAN trade ministers have gotten together and have decided to communicate with the U.S., I think, three main points. First is to reaffirm the long, enduring, and strong relationship with the U.S. Second, though, is to express their concern over these unilateral tariffs that are being imposed on the ASEAN. And third is to engage in a frank and constructive dialogue with the U.S. to reaffirm their readiness, or our readiness in ASEAN, to work together to explore mutually acceptable solutions on issues of common interest. But I would like to say that there are probably 2 key takeaways here. One is that every country will continue with their bilateral negotiations with the U.S. and concurrently conduct a regional discussion with the U.S. And the key words are cooperation, not retaliation.
Meanwhile, China and Malaysia, currently leading ASEAN, held a crucial video meeting to address growing trade concerns, particularly the U.S.'s reciprocal tariffs. China's Commercial Minister Wang Wentao stressed the importance of dialogue and mutual respect, criticizing the tariffs for disrupting the long-established balance of global trade. He argued these tariffs ignore the years of multilateral negotiations that have benefited the U.S. significantly. Thousands of retirees and union members gathered in Buenos Aires to protest President Javier Milei's austerity measures, which they claim have significantly impacted their livelihoods. The demonstration, supported by Argentina's largest union, served as a precursor to a 24-hour strike affecting various sectors. According to Vilma Ripoll, a national deputy, Milei's fiscal policies have disproportionately targeted retirees, cutting their incomes and benefits. Now, despite Milei's success in reducing inflation, critics argue that his approach has exacerbated social inequality and hardship.
We are here on Wednesdays to regain the dignity that this government didn't give us. Since this government took over, they took away our medicine. We lost 8% purchasing power when they devalued. We lost 8%. Then Congress approved that restitution and they vetoed it. The president vetoed it, and on top of that, he had a barbecue celebrating what they did to us, the retirees.
My pension is 270,000 pesos. 270,000 pesos. It's not enough to buy meat or pay for utilities. I can't even buy my medication. I had prostate cancer surgery 2 years ago, and they've left me without medication.
And the news continues here on NET25. We'll be right back.
Dahil walang hinto ang balita.
Financial straits.
Mata ng Agila Weekend tuwing Sabado, alas 4 ng hapon. Ito ang NET25. Matatag, matapag, matapak.
Let's net together sa NET25. Sa NET25.
U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said it was up to Iran to decide whether the recent U.S. movement of B-2 bombers was a message to Tehran, as he voiced hope that U.S.-Iran negotiations over Tehran's nuclear program could be resolved peacefully. As many as 6 B-2 bombers relocated in March to a U.S.-British military base on the Indian Ocean island of Diego Garcia, amid a U.S. bombing campaign in Yemen and mounting tensions with Iran.
I mean, President Trump's been clear on that. Iran should not have a nuclear bomb, nuclear weapons. We very much hope the President is focused on doing that peacefully. That's very much what we would prefer as well. Our job at the Defense Department is to make sure we have all the assets available for any possible contingency, and that's what we'll continue to do. But the President is focused. There are negotiations ongoing. It's very much, as he's made clear, our preferred track. Our job is to devastate the Houthis and open up those shipping lanes, and we'll continue to do that.
With Iran, yeah, if it requires military, we're going to have military. Israel will obviously be very much involved in that. He'll be the leader of that. But nobody leads us. We do what we want to do.
Run out on the talks.
That's because when the election was rigged, I figured they'd get the weapon because...
From the pages of a 1970s comic to the heart of today's political discourse, Captain Canuck is experiencing a powerful resurgence. Now, this maple leaf-clad hero, created to give Canada its own iconic figure, is finding new life in a climate of trade disputes and annexation anxieties, giving voice to a nation's sense of sovereignty. Take a look. And the news continues here on NET25. We'll be right back.
This decades-old maple leaf-clad superhero is staging a comeback. A symbol of Canadian pride, Captain Canuck has reemerged from the shadows to fight for his country. His new arch-nemesis? American President Donald Trump.
All of a sudden, Trump gets into office and he starts talking about annexation and tariffs. And yes, all of a sudden, Canadians are looking to Captain Canuck as a symbol. And it's basically, to them, Captain Canuck symbolizes independence.
Comic book creator Richard Cumley introduced Canadians to Captain Canuck in 1975.
This is the first issue.
Since then, the comic book series has been in and out of publication. But Cumley has seen renewed interest in the Canadian superhero, portrayed manhandling Trump and his billionaire advisor, Elon Musk, in this recent sketch.
We're getting more and more calls from Canadian companies who are expressing some keen interest in Captain Canuck, largely because of what's happening between America and Canada at this very time. So, in a sense, we have Mr. Trump to thank for a bit of resurgence.
Cumley's Captain Canuck comics and memorabilia were on display at the Vancouver Comic and Toy Show in early April. The comic book character, a Mountie endowed with superhuman strength after an alien encounter, has been beloved for years by some, including longtime fan Ron Roxburgh.
I found Captain Canuck at issue number 6, which was back in the early 80s. It was the first Canadian comic I had ever seen, so it kind of blew my mind.
America had Captain America, and we should have our own. And that was the thinking, and that was my thinking. And it wasn't as if I was so super conscious of it. It was just like, okay, there's a niche to be filled here. And that was the beginning, and it was well received.
Cumley says Trump's sweeping tariffs on Canadian imports and his musing about making Canada the 51st state has provided plenty of new inspiration for Captain Canuck's 50th anniversary issue.
I'm sort of predicting in the series that Canada is now recognized as a world power, mostly because of all the resources that are here in this country. I mean, and Canada is full of everything, all the resources you can imagine, from water to minerals to what have you. And so I envision Canada being recognized for that, in my stories. And then, but at the same time, needing more protection from terrorists and other groups that wanted to basically infiltrate Canada or destabilize Canada and take over Canada. So I was already dealing with those kind of issues. Of course, never in any of those stories was it America that was going to be taking over Canada. It was always the Russians or crazy groups of multinational groups.
While concerned about Trump's rhetoric, Cumley believes the U.S. will back off its northern neighbor eventually. And he says his Captain Canuck storyline has a happy ending.
And with that, we have tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on NET25, I'm Alma Angeles. Thank you all for joining us. Good night.